Welcome to the May the 19th, 1986. It happened in Grand Prairie as we bring you back memories. And this is our history tape number 16 in the sequence. And we're just so delighted to have two wonderful Grand Prairians with us today, Charles and Ramona Hall. And Charles and Ramona, we want to welcome you to It Happened. Glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. Now, as longtime Grand Prairians, we want to put into the record maybe some of the things that you all have remembered about Grand Prairie, Texas. And first of all, Charlie, let's start with you. Charles Hall, give us your full name, and then tell us a little bit about your parents, how long you've been in Grand Prairie, Texas, and where your parents came from, and etc. And look right out into your camera and do that for us, would you?
Okay. I was born in Grand Prairie in 1912, May the 27th. I was one of Dr. Copeland's babies. H.V. Copeland, Horace Copeland. He was our family doctor, and anytime I had a little something matter with me, my parents always called Dr. Copeland. He came no matter what time of day it was or night. And my father came to Texas from Tennessee, East Tennessee. Some of the folks from Tennessee had been out here, and they said the forks of the Trinity River was heaven on earth. So my dad came about the turn of the century, about 1900, and he worked with my uncle, Tom Hall, who was a farmer in Grand Prairie for many, many years. And then he went into the grocery business. My uncle was in the grocery business, and my dad went in with him as a partner. And shortly thereafter, he passed away, his Uncle Bird Hall. And E.E. Hall at that time was working at the bank, and my dad got him to come in as his partner.
All right, now, Charlie, I want to interrupt you. We've had a Tom Hall, an E.E. Hall, but we've not mentioned your father's full name, and we'd like to have that.
His name was Charlie Smith Hall. Smith was his mother's maiden name. And I don't believe I gave my middle name, which was Lacey, which was my mother's maiden name.
All right, now we have your father's name. We would like to have your mother's name, her full name, with the Lacey included. And where did she come from?
Her name was Lillian Leland Lacey. She was born down in Eagle Ford, Texas. I'm sure most people now have never heard of Eagle Ford, but it was a small, well, in fact, it was actually a ford where people drove their cattle to the Eagle Ford to get them across the Trinity River, and that was where the TP Railroad stopped for several years, and they'd drive their cattle there to load them on the railroad. My mother had quite a large family of half-sisters and half-brothers and full brothers and sisters. And I've heard her speak often of her little pony that she had. She rode around in the hills on Chalk Hill. And she went to the Teacher's Normal at San Marcos. She was a school teacher at her first school was Lee Todd and Farmers Branch. Lee Todd is still, people say you can still find it. I never have found it.
You can find Lee Todd, you surely can.
But Farmers Branch is really grown. And then she did teach in Grand Prairie for many, many years. I'd meet up with people and say, oh, I remember Miss Lee. She and my grandmother were charter members of the First Christian Church. And they had an old pump organ. And, of course, the people thought they needed a piano. So they gave them the pump organ to go in on the piano. And my mother played the piano for a few years. And she'll tell you about how long she's played that piano.
All right. Now, Charlie, I'd like for you to tell me this. How did your mother meet your father?
Well, I don't know too much details about it.
Did they meet here in Grand Prairie?
Oh,
or in
yeah.
Eagle Ford?
No, they met here in Grand Prairie. He was
right.
in the grocery business at that time, and he and Dick Stubbs, I believe it was, were real good buddies. And my mother and Tildy Fauché, what the girls used to call each other chums in those days, I believe. And that's where they...
All right. Now, Charles, do you have any brothers and sisters? Were
I
you
was
an only child?
I was the only child.
You were an only child. I think that's very, very exciting that you were an only child. Now, when you went to school in Grand Prairie, Texas, where did you go?
On the opposite corner from where the business administration building is now. The old red schoolhouse. While I was going, it was added to a couple of times.
All right.
That was back in the days when Mr. Hudspeth was superintendent.
All right. What class did you graduate with?
It was in
About 29?
1929.
1929.
1929.
How
with
many
a
were in your class?
Total of 14.
14. Are any of those living in Grand Prairie at this time?
Yes, but I haven't kept contact closely with these. Some of them still
There's
live.
some of them still living here in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Right.
That is great. Well, tell us a little bit about that grocery store downtown. I'm interested in it. Where was that located?
Well, originally it started in a wood frame building that was...
On what street?
Well, there wasn't any street. It
Wasn't
was
any
in
street?
Urban went along in front of it, and there was you could drive up in front of it, but the street didn't go on through to 4th Street or whatever it is now.
All right.
And then when they moved out of that frame building, they moved down on the corner, an old 2-story brick building.
All right. What is located there now?
It's just a parking lot for White's Cafeteria now.
A parking lot for White's Cafeteria on Jefferson, right?
On Jefferson Street. And they had an old wood-operated elevator to go to the 2nd floor, but they never did use it in the grocery business. It was just a storage place.
All right. Now, when your dad worked in the grocery store, did he ever invite you as his young son to come in and help with all those good things?
Well, they used to say ever since about the time I could walk, I was put to work in the grocery store. And my regular job, one of my regular jobs was washing the plate glass windows. And what I used was put a little coal oil and a bucket of water and let her go.
Yes.
Brushed it down, and that coal oil did keep it from streaking and made it shine.
All right. Now, after you got out of high school here in 1929, what did you do then? Did you go to work? Did you meet Ramona, or what was your plan?
No, I went to business college in Fort Worth, Brantley Drone Business College, which had a radio course. And I took a radio course there, and after I graduated in that, I went to work back in the store after doing some service work. And I was working in the grocery store, and Mr. E.L. Parker, which a lot of Grand Prairie folks still know, I was warehouse superintendent over at General Electric Supply Company. One morning at breakfast, he he said something about he had to get somebody. That was when the Depression was just starting to break, or they thought it was. And his daughter said, well, why don't you get Charles? Well, he says, I'll try. Well, he asked me to go to work, and I told him I'd think about it. And, of course, my daddy and my uncle both said, oh, no, we just can't get along without you at all. You mustn't leave. So My mother was still living at that time, and she said, by all means, get out of that store.
Wonderful. That was great.
Because in the store them days, you went to work about 6 and sometimes 10 when you quit. So I went over to General Electric in 1935 and was there for 42 years. Went in the Navy. Way I got acquainted with Ramona
All right.
was one of our elders at that time had been picking Ramona up to play the piano. We didn't have a pianist at that time, and he shifted that duty to me.
And so you picked her up, and not only did you pick her up, but you courted her, and then you married, did you? All right. I'm going to get to Ramona now a little bit about possibly that courtship and what brought her to Grand Prairie, Texas. Ramona, let's fix your microphone a little bit better. It's sort of turned over here so that we can hear you very well now. And would you look out into your camera and just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to Grand Prairie, about your folks, something like Charles has told us.
Well, I was born in Windsor, Illinois. That's the central part of Illinois. And we did a good bit of traveling, just for about period of years. I don't know how long before. We went to Colorado, lived there for about 6 months, and then went on back to Illinois. And my parents had a Coca-Cola bottling company, and they sold this, and they decided to go west. And we went to California, just lived there a while, and then in Arizona, in Tucson, Arizona, almost 2 years. And due to our traveling, they were trying to find a place that would be better for my health. And Grand Prairie was it. Because when we came to Grand Prairie, they could tell a big change. So that's how we settled here.
All right, and give your parents' names.
My father's name was William Leroy Bowen.
All right.
And my mother's name was Margaret May Bowen.
The Bowens. You were a Bowen, Ramona Bowen. That
Yes.
is very exciting. When you came to Grand Prairie, how old were you then? Were you in school, or had you graduated from school?
I was 11.
You were 11. And you went on to Grand Prairie
I went
school?
to Grand Prairie.
Did you
school.
graduate from Grand Prairie
No,
school?
I didn't.
Oh, that's wonderful that you...
I went to school in Dallas.
In school in Dallas.
In Ursuline Academy.
Oh, that's a
I
marvelous...
graduated
From Ursula. That is a wonderful academy. It certainly is. All right. How did you meet Charles?
Like he said, we went to the same church. And,
All right.
And it
It just happened, didn't it?
just happened.
All right. Now tell me about you two. Do you have any children?
We have 3 daughters.
All right. Could you name them, and are any of them in Grand Prairie, Texas?
One's here in Grand Prairie.
All right. Let's name her first and give her a little PR.
She's the youngest one.
All right. Give us her name.
Donna Hall.
Donna Hall is still here with you here in Grand Prairie, Texas.
She-
All right. Name your other 2.
There's Margaret, as the older one, and she's in Colorado Springs.
And what is her
Colorado.
last name now?
Marshall.
Marshall.
She
Okay.
married John Marshall.
All right. Now give us the next one.
The middle one is Lillian, and she's Lillian Price.
William Price. That's wonderful. Do you have any grandchildren?
We have 4.
Have 4 grandchildren. That is just marvelous. And they're the apple of Charlie's eye, too. And
Oh, yes.
Yes. Charlie, are you like Carl Pondexter when he said that I like my grandkids to come to see me for the first 2 hours and said after that I go in my own room and close my door? Thought that was wonderful. All right. Now, Ramona, we want just a little bit more about you. I know that you're a wonderful pianist. Would you tell us a little bit about how you studied music and how many people in Grand Prairie, Texas, possibly, that you've taught over all
I
of
couldn't
these
begin
years?
to tell you.
You couldn't begin
No.
to tell me. I knew that you couldn't. Yes, but there are hundreds of boys and girls that have
Right.
sat at your feet for piano instructions, right? Do you still teach any?
I still teach,
Mm-hmm.
preparing for recital the end of this month.
Mm-hmm. That is wonderful. All right, now, in all of these years that you've been in Grand Prairie, Texas, Charles, now, a lot of that time you were working over in Dallas, right? How did you get to work?
Oh, we, various ways. When I first started, I rode with Mr. Parker.
Rode with Mr. Parker. Did he
Yeah.
have a car?
He had an old car, quite an old car, and they lived down on 8th Street.
On the corner of 8th Street, where the old station is
and
across
then
from the
they
First
cut,
City
They
Bank.
cut the highway through there
Yes.
after I started to work, as
All
I
right.
remember it. And I'd walk down there of a morning, and one morning it was raining, and there wasn't any ice on the highway.
Yes.
And Mr. Parker asked me, says, is there any ice out there? And I said, I didn't see any. So we started on the old lady highway, and the first bridge we hit, there was ice.
There
And-
was ice.
And we cut all kind of capers you ever saw, and ended up with our back end of the car going down the embankment, embedded in the bank.
All right.
And somebody happened to come along, maybe that's what he was looking for, was business that morning, and Mr. Parker had him to pull us out.
All right. Now, I'd like for you to tell me this. Where did you first live when you and Ramona married? And tell us about the location of it at this present time.
Well, I was in the service on an old destroyer, a 424 USS Niblack.
How wonderful.
I was up on the bridge one night watching the beautiful moon and the calm water, and the communication officer who was on duty, I was directly under him aboard ship, and he came out to me and says, Hall, if you ever want to get married, you better, next time we're in port, we're going to be in port for about 3 days, and you better go get married. So I came to Grand Prairie, had a little difficulty getting here, went over and tried to get a plane reservation, and they said, oh, no, if you haven't got a written priority, there's no space for you. So I went back to board ship, and the executive officer, he says, no, you don't have any emergency. I won't give you a priority. And the old captain, he was gone, and didn't get to see him, so had to wait till next day. It was only 72 hours we had. So went back to, for the train the next day, and we got Grand Central Station. We was all set to get on the train, and they cut us off before I got on, and me and my buddy and said, oh, we're sorry, but the government won't allow us to put any more people on this train. So we waited around for quite a while, and finally got on the train. Then we changed at St. Louis, and when they got to Texarkana, they hollered out that they split the train. Part of it was going to New Orleans and part of it to Dallas. No, not Dallas. Houston was their destination. Only they said where the other part of the train will go to Houston. So we decided to go ahead and get married, and it was pretty fast dealing, and we got married in the First Christian Church, just a few friends, close friends.
Where was the First Christian Church located at that
It
time?
was on the corner of Church and Hall Street at that time.
And
They
that was
called
called
that Hall Street
How
in those
wonderful.
days. They changed that during World War II or right after.
I see.
So the preacher that married us is still living. He's retired and living over in Fort Worth. We saw him not long ago.
Right, that is wonderful. All right, now we have some wonderful memorabilia here. Let's start with Ramona. Ramona, what is this beautiful?
Postage stamp quilt top,
All right.
and this was made by my mother.
And
but
it was hand-pieced by your mother?
Yes.
Oh,
I just can't open it all up.
That
it's a-
is so
But
lovely.
it is a pretty thing. postage stamps, they've gone back to some about the same size, but this was the original size of the postage stamp.
That was back in
20.
the 2 cents day.
Way
I wonder
back
how
when.
many small pieces there are in
I
there.
don't know. I never have
You've
counted.
never counted all of that good stuff,
No.
have you? That is a marvelous piece of handwork.
But I've been trying to find someone to quilt it. If I ever get it quilted, I'll put it in the fair.
Oh, yes, because
Yeah.
it is certainly, certainly lovely. All right, Charlie, you have several other things. What is this particular thing that we have out here?
This
I
is-
don't recognize that.
That's an old wooden lemon squeezer. You open it up and put your lemon in there, half a lemon. You cut the lemon in two and push down on the handle and the juice come out the bottom.
Oh, that is good. Did that come from your family?
It's way back in the family. I don't know just how old it is. Well over 50 years old.
All right, now tell me about this little box. We need to talk about that.
Well, these little wood boxes,
Let's
when
hold
you
that up where they can see.
when you
that.
bought, when you got your eyeglasses, well, that's what they put them in. They was packed in real cotton, real soft cotton in this wooden box. And in here is a Coca-Cola thimble, advertising Coca-Cola. It says Coca-Cola from their.
That came from your
bottling company.
Coca-Cola bottling company. That's wonderful. All right, now, I recognize something like this. My grandmother had one of those. Tell us about that one.
Well, I don't know how many years my grandmother used this, but this was her snuff can, her box. She called it a box. And she made her own brushes, and this can still has some snuff in it and a brush, and it smelled just like snuff did 50 years ago.
What brand of snuff did
I
your
think she
grandmother
used
use?
Honest all the time.
Honest,
That's the only
not
kind.
Devo or some of the
No,
others.
not
Oh.
Levi Garrett. She wouldn't use nothing but Honest snuff, I believe.
Oh, that is wonderful. Okay, now you have something here that I think Harry King at Tesco would really like to get into his collection. Tell us what that is.
Well, we had always had at least 2 cows, and back in those days, you didn't have to have pasteurized milk and all that stuff and homogenized. People bought milk from their neighbors. So we had 2 or 3 regular customers all the time, and I delivered it to them. One place I'd climb over a fence every time to get their milk to their back door.
And these are the bottle caps that you
Right.
put on the bottles.
A regular old bottle, milk bottle, you put that in it, and that sealed it. You could turn it over and this wouldn't come out. But every time you put milk in it, you put a new cap.
Who milked the cows?
Well, I did all, since I was a little boy, I milked cows too. But we had a wonderful neighbor that he didn't have a cow, Mr. Jack Kirby and his wife, and he always helped us milk and take care of everything over at our house too. He didn't loan any land in Grand Prairie, but he had leased or rent several little plots of ground and had several acres of cotton. And that was the only cotton I ever picked in my life. I picked cotton from Mr. Kirby several summers.
All right, now you have something that looks like a badge here. Explain what that is and hold it up so our camera can get it.
Well, on it says chauffeur, but what it was a commercial vehicle driver's license. You couldn't drive a truck without you had to wear this thing all the time. So this was my daddy's. It was issued in 1920.
1920. That's my birth year. That's a good year. All right, Charlie, this looks like maybe a quarter that has some holes in it. What in the world
Well,
is that?
it's an old streetcar token where you could buy them and get a reduced fare. I don't remember
wasn't a
too much about it.
There wasn't a street
Not
car
in Grand Prairie. This had to be Dallas or somewhere.
Okay.
It doesn't say Dallas on it. It used to be the Dallas Railway and Terminal Company was the streetcar company in Dallas.
Now that looks like a watch fob. Whose is this?
That was a watch fob. I guess it originally belonged to my daddy. And this was advertising Paget